7 o'clock, I'm Katrina Marshall with your morning Barbados news. The Barbados economy continues to struggle under the burden of high oil prices. Finance Minister Chris Sinclair says this is the major factor that has led to the current downgrading by financial rating agency Moody Investors. Moody's has expressed concern about the capacity of the domestic market to continue to absorb elevated levels of government debt issuance. The company says Barbados' large current account deficit is expected to increase due to recent hikes in oil prices. Mr. Sinclair said the oil prices have negatively affected Barbados' external account of the balance of payment. However, government remains committed to the implementation of renewable energy programs in Barbados.
It has expanded in terms of the deficit on the current account and likely will continue to do so if oil prices continue to trend upward in the way in which they do. We spend a considerable amount of money on oil and we have a fairly large consumption effect in Barbados for foreign oil. Now, our efforts at renewable energy in relation to solar, in relation to wind, even our efforts at exploration, offshore exploration in our offshore drilling program are in their infancy.
Finance Minister Chris Sinclair. The central bank, meantime, says it remains confident that the local market can accommodate the current and projected levels of government debt issuance. It also says the amortization profile for government's domestic debt portfolio is relatively smooth, with maturities mostly at the longer end of the maturity spectrum. This aids in ensuring that the domestic debt service burden is not too onerous. The central bank says based on government's continued commitment to consolidate its fiscal position, which should be reflected in a lowering of the debt burden in 2012, the volume of net new financing from domestic entities is also expected to decline in the medium term. According to the bank, the sustainability of government's efforts at fiscal consolidation will be conditioned by the gradual economic recovery that has already begun to take shape, coupled with gains from the revenue measures cited in the November 2010 estimates and budgetary proposals. The Frundle-Stewart administration has been called on to engage Barbadians in a mature, frank discussion on the way forward for Barbados. Opposition parliamentarian Mia Mottley was leading off debate for the opposition as the House of Assembly debated this country's human resource development strategy. She noted that the Minister of Education and Human Resource Development was asking Parliament to approve some $583 million to fund the development strategy, but the disclosure from rating service Moody's must serve as a wake-up call for Barbados. Ms. Mottley added that Moody also gave a negative outlook for this country over the next 18 months, while adding there were structural problems within the economy.
Effectively, what it is saying is that the pressure from domestic credit creation will put serious pressure on the overall economy, but it will also ultimately put pressure on the same exchange rate that they are trying to hold up. Now, if ever there was a wake-up call, Mr. Speaker, this is a wake-up call. And to avoid the very devaluation that none of us wants to see, then it requires a restructuring of the Barbados government.
Opposition parliamentarian Mia Mottley speaking in Parliament. Government may have to reduce the number of people it trains to become nurses. This was revealed by Acting Prime Minister Ronald Jones as he outlined Barbados' human resource development strategy in Parliament. He said a project was designed to train 70 nurses every year, but government will have to cut back in an effort to reduce the massive surplus.
We are not finding now, as was happening a few years ago, where a lot of our nurses were being called upon to travel out of Barbados, particularly nurses with experience in Canada or the United States. We're also having some issues with medical doctors as well, trained doctors in Cuba, trained doctors just in and in the medical faculty, third into his fourth year here at Case Hill. And producing literally every year, starting with 25 doctors, now to 35 doctors, plus all of those others for whom the state is not paid.
The acting Prime Minister has also said there are trained doctors in Barbados who are not in full employment. He believes government may have to introduce a method of training specialist doctors and nurses in various areas of the medical profession. A new look, Barbados Christian Council is promising to be more involved in the life and development of the country. New chairman Monsignor Vincent Blackett of the Roman Catholic Church says there is a need for the organization to be more visible. The cleric says there are lots of problems in society which require the attention of the church.
I would hope that the churches together can work to help to improve upon this situation. Like we continue to hear about the culture that is developing. And how do we help to shape a new culture where there's more peace and harmony and less violence and brutality being meted out? Schools are experiencing difficulties. How can the churches be involved in the whole education system to bring about change?
Monsignor Vincent Blackett. Turning now to the region, the Jamaica police say they have been able to significantly reduce the number of criminal gangs in the country. Police Commissioner Owen Ellington said the police strategy has been reaping much success with the dismantling of half the 57 criminal gangs since the start of the year. Commissioner Ellington also attributed the significant decrease in murders across the island to the anti-gang initiative. But while there's been success, the police are still finding it difficult to deal with the island's two major gangs. While the top leadership of the deadly Klansmen and One Order gangs have been, quote, wiped out, the police are still seeking to dismantle the second tier of the criminal network established by those gangs. There have been 700 fewer murders across Jamaica between June last year and May 31st this year compared to the previous year. Staying in Jamaica, dancehall artist Mavado was released on bail less than 24 hours after he was charged with assault following an incident at a nightclub. Police charged Mavado, whose real name is David Brooks, with assault after an altercation at the Quad nightclub in Kingston. Law enforcement officials had earlier questioned the entertainer and another singer, Bounty Killer, before laying charges against Mavado for allegedly assaulting a police officer. A member of Mavado's entourage has been hospitalized with a gunshot wound as a result of the altercation between members of his entourage and a member of the security forces. That has been your news on Morning Barbados. Join us for weather and sports. The present weather is fair. The current temperature is 27.6 degrees Celsius. The relative humidity, 86%. The barometric pressure, 13.3 millibars. Strong winds coming out of the east-southeast at 24 kilometers per hour. High tide will be at 9 minutes after 4 this afternoon. Low tide will be at 9:30 this morning and again at 3:30 this afternoon. The sea to moderate in open water with swells of 2.0 to 2.5 meters, so small craft operators and sea bathers continue to exercise caution. So Barbados today and tonight will be generally cloudy to overcast with some showers and isolated thunderstorms, more numerous over the southern Windward Islands. The Lesser Antilles today and tonight will be generally cloudy to overcast with some showers and isolated thunderstorms, more numerous over the southern Windward Islands. And of course we now go to Colin Cunningham, who's got our sports package.
Well, it's not much of a package really, it's more like sports in brief. Well, not wearing briefs. Anyway, it was champion versus champion recently as Barbados and Caribbean women's squash champion Karen Meekins took on the world's #1 Nicole David of Malaysia. Both ladies put on a fine exhibition game in front of a full house at the Barbados Squash Center. CBC's Sean Green was there.
Karen Meekins of Barbados in the white top wasn't at all intimidated by David, and the noisy crowd was behind her all the way. And Meekins continued to put the pressure on the world #1, putting out the full stretch, but just couldn't get there. David, however, never allowed her to settle. She hits this one straight, and Meekins was beaten for pace, not being able to get around in time. But at times, the local champ became her own worst enemy, making a few unforced errors. This was another one of many, as she lost the first set to the world champion 11-8. However, Meekins started the second set well, making the champion work hard. But the Belgian had the last laugh. Meekins upped her game and had the champion reeling. However, in any champion versus champion contest, you get a good quality match, even if sometimes the ball doesn't cooperate. And David was clear to point that out. But she was the world champion after all and lived up to that reputation, beating Meekins on this occasion. And it's not very often you see your local and Caribbean champion getting roughed up. But coming up against the world champion is a different story, an uphill battle. David also took that set 11-8. And despite Kieran Meekins of Barbados fighting back bravely in the third, beating the world's best 11-9, like a true champion, Nicole David saved her best for last with an 11-5 triumph to win at 3-1. Sean Green, CBC Sports.
Sounds like it was really an exhibition of high-quality squash there. Well, there are two changes in the West Indies team for the 5th Digicel Pearls One International against India, which begins, it takes place tomorrow. Actually on Thursday. Danza Hyatt and Kirk Edwards have been replaced in the squad by Ravi Rampal and Adrian Barath. It's good to welcome the little youngster back. And this game, of course, will be played at Sabina Park in Jamaica. The full team, Darren Sami, who is the captain, Adrian Barath, Carlton Board, Devendra Bishu, Darren Bravo, Anthony Martin, Kieran Pollard, Ravi Rampal, Kamar Roach, Andre Russell, Marlon Samuels, Ramnaresh Sawan, and Lendell Simmons. We shift now to football, where Unity of Trinidad won their 3rd Banks Barbados International Masters Football Festival over the weekend when they beat Vincy Masters 6-5 on penalties. Unity is from Trinidad and Tobago. The scores were locked 0-0 at regulation time at Darrell's Road. CBC's Andy Thornhill has a report.
Offensively, the Vincentians in possession looked the more threatening from the inception. This is the second half and they stepped up the pressure. Thought they had scored with that wonderful header, only for the bubble to be burst by the referee's assistant, who saw an infringement in the penalty area. The goal was disallowed, much to their dismay. But they would keep on coming, showing good skill, good ball possession, good shooting, just over the crossbar. Still, they could not unlock the door. The Trinidadians generally drove wide when they had opportunities. 0-0 at full time. On to penalties. Unity leading the way. Crucial miss for the Vincentian Masters. Unity continued to score. And another crucial miss, this time from Unity. This was perhaps the most crucial miss of all. The Vincentians handed the cup to Unity of TNT. On this day, Unity was indeed strength. Andy Thornhill, CBC Sports.
Unity. Congratulations to that team from Trinidad and Tobago. Look forward to next year's tournament. In today's Sports Talk, top Barbadian golfer James Johnson looks ahead to what could be his 5th consecutive United Insurance Barbados Open title.
I think there's always a little bit of pressure. I mean, we want to win. You prepare and train pretty much, 3 or 4 months in advance for this event. It's the biggest event in Barbados. It's a great honor to be considered national champion. But at the same time, I have a confidence and I try to take that pressure off of myself and by believing that I can and will win. It's my home course. That's where I play most of the time, so I know it very well. So in that sense, it is one of my favorites, definitely. It's a beautiful golf course. Certainly one of the best in the Caribbean. But I feel that I can win on any golf course. Caribbean Championships, beginning of August. That's the biggest event in the Caribbean. We'll be defending champions, so we're looking to bring that home. That's always a tough challenge against Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, with so many more golfers than we have to choose from. They're always tough, so we'll have to be at the very top of our game to win that. And after that is the Caribbean Cup, which is a bit of a unique format where we have 12 players on a team from the Southern Caribbean competing against 12 players from the Northern Caribbean. And that's also being hosted in Trinidad. I believe that's in October. And then I'm going to play in the Jamaica Open, which is the beginning of December, which is my first time I'll be playing in that. And that is another unique event. 3 days in Montego Bay, at Half Moon Golf Course. But they also have a pro division in that event. Now, I won't be competing as a professional, but I'll be playing with professionals in the same event. So that'll be interesting to see, you know, amateurs playing with pros, and you're kind of playing against them, in you know, so to speak. So looking forward to that as well. We've talked about it for the last 8 years since I graduated from the States, and right now I'm very comfortable with amateur golf. It's a lot less pressure, and I'm enjoying my amateur golf right now, and I think I'll probably keep pro golf on hold for a little while.